Last year, Google released, in my opinion, one of its most underrated products in a long time. And 12 months later, I think a lot of people are still sleeping on it. So let's talk about that. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and I know the Pixel tablet isn't as powerful as the iPad, nor is it as supported for as long, but for me, the reason I keep coming back to it and the reason it's one of the most used pieces of tech in my entire house is that it has the dock. The combination of a good quality tablet and a decent quality dock makes the Pixel tablet what it really is. When I first got my tablet, I was assuming I'd use it for the review period and then quickly box it up and put it in storage, but since moving out, it's been a staple in my kitchen. It's used constantly in its smart screen docked mode for timers, recipes, for streaming music and podcasts, and as simple as it really sounds, as a clock. It's made doing chores that little bit easier as I'll just whack on a pod or an album while tidying or doing the dishes. The speaker quality of the dock isn't insane, and I wouldn't bother using this for a party or even a really large living room, but here in my small kitchen it is easily enjoyable with some decent low end volume that does well to fill the kitchen with sound and a nice smooth tuning curve. And then when I want to pick up the tablet, it's not half bad in that mode either. When my partner or I want to look at something or plan something that we don't want to use our phones for or sit at the desk and use a computer for, the big sharp screen is handy for that. Is it the highest quality screen? No, it's not. It's only 60 Hz and it uses IPS tech, but it doesn't need to be the best. It's just good at what it does and works for watching YouTube videos, scrolling through articles and websites, and of course, playing games. Look, the Tensor G2 was never the most powerful chip on launch, let alone now, and if the Pixel tablet wasn't a gaming device back then, it certainly isn't now. You can play games on here, it's not impossible, and I think the frame rates are fairly decent if you go into it knowing that you're not getting the best gaming experience in the world, as most games don't really hit 60 FPS all that often. And I alluded to game streaming and remote play in my initial review of the Pix tab, and that's still clearly viable as you're placing all the load on the desktop or the host machine and not the tablet. But high-end native 3D titles, while playable I'd say, aren't going to perform to nearly the level that you would expect even a base model iPad to do, which is a heck of a deal right now. For time sinkers like Clash Royale or Golf Battle though, it's as smooth as it realistically needs to be, and I've had no problem wasting time with the more basic games on my Pixel tablet. I don't know many people who still use tablets, let alone those that would choose to game on one, but just know that this isn't the device to sink hours into 3D titles on. But otherwise, performance in and around the OS has been solid. There are some fairly small hiccups here and there, but they aren't deal breakers for me, and I think the overall experience of having used it over the past 9 months has been good, very overall a decent experience with no major crashes or times where I've had to force restart the thing for writing notes, browsing the web, scrolling through social medias, and of course watching the odd YouTube video. It's just been fine. Doesn't stand out as particularly fast or particularly slow, it's just kind of average. It's also had a major software update since launch to Android 14, with Android 15 right around the corner too. Though you could load the beta up on here if you really wanted to, I just don't know that I'd bother because it doesn't seem to bring heaps to the table. I do have to call attention to an update that lets you force apps into full screen mode, even if they aren't designed to. This is actually a really useful addition that makes the experience of using the Pix tab all the more intuitive and seamless. And multi-user support on here is fantastic, accessible by pulling down the shade and hitting your profile icon. Guest mode for handing the device to people who want something to do for an hour is also very good. Once Android 15 does make its way to the tablet, we're only promised another version and then 2 extra years of security patches, which might be a turn-off for some, because despite the device having been available for over a year at this point, there have been no big permanent price drops. You are of course able to buy one without the dock now, which you couldn't do before, but I don't know why you would do that, because the dock is kind of what sets this thing apart from its contemporaries, and with no real concrete evidence of a successor in the works, I guess Google has no incentive to drop pricing and get all the remaining stock out of the door. I have seen an Amazon listing for the base model combo, including the dock, for $100 off, which I think is a really good deal. I've also seen them new in box on eBay for a cut price too, so there are deals out there to be had as long as you shop around. But on Google and Best Buy, the Pixtab remains at its launch MSRP of $499 with the stand or $399 without. Which, if you're looking for a tablet on its own, isn't that good of a deal, but if you want your smart home centerpiece to double as your convenient handheld, it's kind of a different story. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I have barely touched the camera setup since the initial review period. I've never used it for calls, for recording anything, not even scanning QR codes. They are identical sensors from what I can work out, the front and the back cameras, and the quality is passable, I guess. To at least work for calls, for Zoom meetings, stuff like that. And this gives you an idea of the sound of the microphones in different environments. Upstairs was definitely more of a soft environment. This is a little more echoey, but I think the microphone does a pretty good job. I'd say the sound is probably better than the visuals from a call standpoint. Just wanted to add in here that I found standby time on this tablet to be pretty poor. I'm the sort of person who never really takes the tablet off the dock for more than maybe 1 hour at a time. However, during my sort of extensive testing, I found that it could do 2 to 3 hours, no problem, with max brightness on the screen and a few other Bluetooth connected buds here and there. But I just found that when you left it on the surface, not plugged into the dock, it lost a lot of charge quicker than you'd think, and it's actually very similar to the Pixel phones in this regard, so I have reason to believe it's probably to do with the Google Tensor chip and not the software. I've also not really used the tablet's internal speakers. I know that sounds mad, but I'm usually either casting to it when it's sat in the dock, which is about 97% of the time, or I use Bluetooth buds or headphones when watching a longer video on the tablet itself. I tested the internal speakers for this long form review, and actually they're better than I remembered, with some decent volume and clarity if they do lack quite a bit of bass. The hardware and software do a pretty decent job together, and I especially appreciate the smooth transition from docked to handheld and then vice versa. It pulls together what is really a decent idea of a product. It's strange, the Pixel tablet is one of those devices you don't expect to use much but end up struggling to live without. Okay, that might be a little bit of hyperbole, but I had to unplug the dock when clearing my kitchen out the other day for an inspection, and I forgot to put it back, but the kitchen immediately felt like it was missing something. I'm going to be honest, I'm not surprised that there haven't been any concrete rumours or leaks for a new Pixel tablet. It hasn't been the most popular device by any means, and if Google gets bodied in its smartphone sales, despite creating some truly excellent devices, it makes sense that it's not going to compete with Apple, who has completely taken the tablet market and has owned it for pretty much over a decade at this point. I think for its full MSRP, and given Google's kind of patchy reputation for developing its previous tablets, it's understandable that many don't care about the Pixel tablet. But as someone who's used one for the longest time, it's a fantastic device that does so much even if it's not the best at any of it, but manages to consolidate 2 separate purchases. If Google could permanently drop the pricing by $100 though, I think people might start to take it a little bit more seriously. What do you make of the Pixel tablet? Are you looking for a successor to come soon? And actually, what do you think of the state of Android tablets? Because they've certainly been patchy, haven't they? Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Otherwise, hit like if you enjoyed today's content and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss another upload. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.